Rishus Mardasra. So we're doing Dirshu Bahalacha Mishnah Berurah Kuf Ayin Daled Amid Aleph. Whoops, my mistake. Kuf Ayin Daled Amid Beis. Okay, so we're starting a new Siman.
A lot of these things don't have the Hebrew stuff. Something with only a few.
They don't have the what?
The Hebrew, how do you call it, pages.
Oh, there are pages on them? Okay,
They
well,
do, some of them, but you
well,
have to look for it.
yeah.
The English they have.
So it's Kuf Ayin Daled Amid Beis. It's Siman Shin Lamed Gimel. We're starting a new Siman tonight.
Page
By me, it's Kuf Ayin Daled Amid Beis. 348. 348, what am I saying? 174. Right?
Over here there's no machine.
Oh.
They wrote over there, so yes,
Uh-huh.
find it.
All right, you have it?
They have that English.
Yes, in the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, it's page 348. Okay, Shin Lamed Gimel. Shalayla Fanois Eitzer B'Shabbos Ubay Gimel Seifim. You're not allowed to empty out a storage house on Shabbos, and there are 3 Seifim. The Mechaber begins. Eitzer shel Tvua Oy shel Kadayayin. If you have a storage house of grain or of barrels of wine. Afal Pisha Mutter L'Histapek Mimenu. Even though you're allowed on Shabbos to go into this storage house and take out grain or take out wine to use it by the Suda, and we're going to explain this, Asur lahaschil lefanoisai ela ledvar mitzvah. You're not allowed to set out to start emptying out this storage house unless you're doing it for a dvar mitzvah. We're on Kuf Ayin Daled Amid Beis in the Dirshu, it's page 348, Siman Shin Lamed Gimel. So, what the Mechaber has said so far here is, you have a storage house of grain or wine. Now, grain and wine are not things that are muktzah. So, there would be no problem to go into this storage room and take out food to go use it on Shabbos. The stuff in the storage room is not muktzah. But there is an isser. Let's say you decide you want to clear out this storage room. You want to use it for something else. So you want to go and you want to start clearing out this storage room on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that for a Dvar Rishus. You're not allowed to do that because you want a playroom. Your kids want to set up their model trains. You can't do that on Shabbos. You're only allowed to do it if it's for a Dvar Mitzvah. Kegoin, for example, Shepinahu Lahachnosas Orchim. Let's say you have guests and you need space for your guests and you need another bedroom. So now you want to go clear out this room, set up a couple of beds so that the guests should sleep. That you could do. Or you need a place for a daf yomi shir. The shir needed a place. So you want to go clear out a room for a shir. So you could start to clear out the room on Shabbos if you're doing it for a dvar mitzvah. Now I'm going to go a little bit further, even though I usually don't like doing this, just because before we see the Mishnah Berurah, we have to have enough facts on the ground. So the Mechaber continues on the top of Kuf Ayin Hey Amid Aleph, V'ketzad mifanehu. Let's say you're clearing out this room, taka, for a dvar mitzvah. What are the rules and regulations that govern what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do? So the Mechaber says, Im haya ha'oitzer gadol, if it's a loaded storage room with a lot of stuff in it, mefana mimenu chamesh kupais, you could take out 5 boxes worth of stuff, and we say here, Shebechol Kupa Shalosh Saim, they add in for the Mordechai, each box would contain 3 sa of material, and we'll define that. Laihaya by Elachamesh Kupais, but if the entire storage room only had 5 boxes, then you cannot clear out the entire storage room. Mefana mehem arba kupais, you could take out 4. Aval kuloi lo yefane, but you cannot empty out the entire storage room because there's a new problem. Shema yavai lahashvais gumois. If you empty out the entire storage room, so you had a storage room that was full of stuff, now you cleared out the whole garage. You had a garage full of stuff. You cleared out the whole garage, and now you look at the floor, and you see that the floor has cracks and pits and openings, and you want to use the room. You want to have a nice, smooth floor. So you might come to fill up the holes in the floor, and that would be an isser, that would be a tolda of baina. Now we're going to go over this again, but I wanted you to see the breadth of information before we go into the Mishnah Berurah. So, we have so far, we have an Isser. You have a storage room, it's Shabbos. You're not allowed, says the Mechaber, to begin. Take a look at that first line. Asar lahaschil bai. You're not allowed to begin lefanoisai, to empty out this room, unless you're going to do it for a dvar mitzvah. And even if you're doing it for a dvar mitzvah, there are limitations of what you're allowed to do. You're only allowed to take out a certain amount of stuff. More than that, you're not allowed to take. And you're also not allowed to empty out the room completely. That's what we've seen so far. Now let's dive into the Mishnah Berurah, Ice Cotton Aleph. So the Mechaber said that this storage room has in it barrels of wine, or it has in it tvua, and the Mechaber says these are things shemuter lehistapik bimenu. These are things that you're allowed to use. They're not muktzah. So says the Chavetz Chaim, Ice Cotton Aleph, shemuter lehistapik bimenu lema'achaloi ulemachal behemtoi. This storage room that the Mechaber chose to speak about is a storage room full of food. And food you're allowed to go take to use on Shabbos. The Mefarshim say over here, you should understand, even if we're talking about a storage room, let's say you're in the food business. And you sell all sorts of stuff. You sell cookies, and you sell. So you have boxes of provisions that you weren't intending on using this food. You had boxes here for storage for your business. You were planning on selling this food. Right, so you have stock. Still in all, it's not muktzah. You're still allowed, it's food. You're allowed, if it's food, says the Mishnah Berurah, why is this not muktzah? Why are you allowed to use it l'machal behemtoi? She'eina muktzah. It's not muktzah. Why not? The kaimalon ki Rabbi Shimon, the less le muktzah, we paskin like Rabbi Shimon, not like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that food is not muktzah, ela bigroigreis v'tzimukin shehiniach liyavshan. What kind of food could become muktzah on Shabbos? If you have figs or you have grapes that you put out on the roof to dry, that could become muktzah. Why? First of all, the Chavetz Chaim says, mishum dedachinu biyadayim, because that's food that you had kavana, you went ahead and you were maktzah it. You went ahead, you put it on the roof to dry, and it's as if you said, I am not using this. I'm putting it out here to dry. Not only that, but what the Chavetz Chaim, he does say, v'loi chazion ad sheyis yavshu. And also, the process of drying grapes into raisins or figs into dried figs. What happens is you have an edible piece of produce, you put it out to dry. When the drying process begins, it becomes not roy lachila. It becomes something which is considered inedible. Then when it's dry, it becomes edible again. So there's two things that work here. First of all, there's the svara of didachinu biyadayim. By dried figs and by grapes, you went ahead and you pushed it away. You said, I don't want it. Second of all, it becomes inedible. So that is food, according to Reb Shimon, that could become muktzah. But anything else, according to Reb Shimon, food doesn't become muktzah. So even if you had food that was stocked for your business in your garage, doesn't matter. It's not muktzah. So the problem that we have here of emptying your stock room is not a problem of muktzah. That's the point of the Chavetz Chaim so far.
Isn't food that's not edible in its own state muktzah though?
Yes, if something is inedible in its own state, you're right.
Grain is
Well, so that's an interesting question why it says tfuah. But first of all, grain is not inedible for your animals. That's probably why the Chavetz Chaim points out l'maychal behemtoi. So you're all right, though. Food that's not edible in its present state is muktzah. So what is the problem here? The problem is not muktzah. What's the problem? So the Chavetz Chaim continues, Mikol mokai, im einoi roitza lehistapik mimenu. If you're coming into the garage not to take food, not to take wine, ela lahaskil boy lefanoisai, but just because you decided that it's time to clean out the garage, and that's why you're going to move the food, you're not allowed to do this for a dvar rishus. You're not allowed to do it if it's not for a mitzvah. Why? V'hatam mishum tircha. The reason is because this is tircha yiseira on Shabbos. This is a level of exertion, a level of tircha that we don't want you to be busy with on Shabbos. Again, it's not in the spirit of the day. That's not what Shabbos is for. Ay mishum uvdin b'chayil. Or perhaps it could be very similar to the svara of tircha. It could be because of uvda d'chayil. So points out the Chavetz Chaim, that's the reason for this Isser. We're holding in Siman Shin Lamed Gimel on Kofayin Dalal and Beis, or in the Dirshu on page 348. And just to give a quick recap, what we've said over here is, you're not allowed to go on Shabbos and start cleaning out a storage room. And the problem is not a problem of muktzah, the problem is a problem of tircha or of uvda d'chayil. Okay, now, the Mechaber said, Aser lahaschil boy. Now those are very strange words. The Isser over here seems to be, you're not allowed to start emptying out the room. So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says here in Ois Cotton Beis. Aser lahaschil. We're in Siman Shin Lamed Gimel, Kofayin Dalal and Beis, page 348 in the Dirshu. We're talking about the Isser of clearing out a storage room on Shabbos, which we said you're not allowed to do because of Tircha Yisera. So the Chavetz Chaim says in Ois Cotton Beis, Aser lahaschil, hainu afilu pachos me'arba v'chamesh kupais. This means that you're not allowed to take out even less than 4 or 5 boxes, and this is why I wanted to continue in the Mechaber. What did the Mechaber say? The Mechaber said, for a Dvar Rishus, you're not allowed to start. For a Dvar Mitzvah, you're allowed to start. What are you allowed to take out? 4 or 5 boxes, depending on how much is in the storage room. Says the Chavetz Chaim here, but for a Dvar Rishus, you're not allowed to take out anything, not even 1 box. So for a Dvar Rishus, nothing doing, you can't do anything. Now, umashma, says the Chavetz Chaim, these words, aser lahaschil, that you're not allowed to start cleaning out the room. Umashma, the implication of those words is, de'im hischil me'erev Shabbos, if you would have started cleaning out this room already on Erev Shabbos, so you started before Shabbos, you're not starting on Shabbos, you started before Shabbos, shari l'fanoisai b'Shabbos, then you would be allowed to continue the work on cleaning out the garage on Shabbos, right? Because what does Mechaber say? You're not allowed to start cleaning it out. But you started on Erev Shabbos, all bets are off. This halach is only if you're starting on Shabbos. If you're not starting on Shabbos, you want to continue on Shabbos, you can go ahead, you can do it. Now the Chavetz Chaim puts in some interesting words. Pachos me'arba v'chamesh kupais. But you could only, even if you started on Erev Shabbos, you're going to continue on Shabbos, you're only allowed to take out up to 4 or 5 boxes after the Dvar Rishus. But you're allowed to do that even for a Dvar Rishus. So again, the Mishnah Berurah is saying like this. The Mishnah Berurah is saying, the Mechaber said, there's an Isser, you're not allowed to start clearing out a storage room on Shabbos for a Dvar Rishus. For a Dvar Mitzvah, you're allowed to start clearing out the storage room, but you're only allowed to take up to 4 or 5 boxes. Chavetz Chaim says now, what if you started before Shabbos? If you started before Shabbos, then for a Dvar Mitzvah, you can do whatever you want. You can take out 100 boxes for a Dvar Mitzvah. For a Dvar Rishus, you're also allowed to start, but only up to 4 or 5 boxes. Now, it's important for us to see where the Mishnah Berurah got this from. The concept that this halacha doesn't apply if you started before Shabbos, that's a clear diuk in the words of the Mechaber. The Mechaber is very clear. Aser lahaskil boy lefanoisai. You're not allowed to start clearing it out unless you're doing it for a Dvar Mitzvah. But if I didn't start, if I started before Shabbos, l'chara I could do whatever I want. And indeed, the Magen Avram makes that diuk. The Magen Avram says this whole halacha only applies if you're starting on Shabbos. You started on Erev Shabbos, close the book. This whole halacha doesn't apply. You started before Shabbos, even for a Dvar Rishus, you could do whatever you want. Now, if the Chavetz Chaim would paskin like the Magen Avram, so that's what the Chavetz Chaim would say. The Chavetz Chaim would say, we paskin like the Magen Avram. If you started on Erev Shabbos, you can do whatever you want. Seif Dvar Mitzvah, Seif Dvar Rishus. But that's not what the Chavetz Chaim says. The Chavetz Chaim says if you started before Shabbos, for a Dvar Mitzvah, you can do whatever you want. For a Dvar Rishus, only up to 4 or 5 boxes. Where does he get that from?
Even a bar mitzvah only for 4 or 5 days.
Yes, he doesn't say clearly, but it would seem that, no.
After Dvar,
Even for a Dvar Rishus.
he says the same thing like Dvar.
Even for a Dvar Rishus, you could take, even for a Dvar Rishus, you could take 4 or 5 boxes. But for a Dvar Mitzvah,
That's what he means. Shari the Pana B'Shabbat.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
That's what he's saying. He's talking about mitzvah. And he says,
No, he's not talking about Mitzvah. He's talking about Dvar Rishus.
with Dvar Rishus.
No.
The same thing.
No, read the words. Umashmadim hiskel me'erev Shabbos. If you started every Shabbos, shari lefanoisa b'Shabbos. You could start. It's a mutter to empty it on Shabbos. Pachas me'arba v'chamish kupais. If you do less than 4 or 5 kupais, afal Dvar Rishus. Even for a Dvar Rishus. But I think for a Dvar Mitzvah, you can do whatever you want. But he's coming from the Magen Avram. And the Magen Avram says clearly that this whole halacha doesn't apply if you started on erev Shabbos.
Yeah, but if you take all of them, it's going to be mashra gumos. What do I care if it's bar mitzvah or not bar mitzvah? You still got a problem with mashra gumos.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. What do you do with the Isser of Mashra Gumais? So it could be you have to leave something in the room. You have to leave something in the room.
You can't take anything.
No, but it's still not the share of 4 or 5 boxes. You can take more than 4 or 5 boxes. If there's 20 boxes, you can take 19. Well, what did you want to say? No. Mashra Gumais, the problem with Mashra Gumais is when you empty your room, you're going to see cracks in the floor and you might fill them. That's a telda of Baina. That's the problem with Mashra Gumais. No, that's not Mashra Gumais. That's making Gumais. That's a different problem. But that they're not worried about here. Okay, now, if you take a look in the Shar Tzion, Ois Hey, okay, he brings down a Taz over here. The Taz argues on the Magen Avram. And the Taz has a very powerful question on the Magen Avram. What the Taz asks on the Magen Avram is, Magen Avram, you're being medayik in the Mechaber. The Mechaber said, Aser lahaschil, but if you're not starting, if you started on Erev Shabbos, you can do whatever you want. Taz says it's a very cute diak, but it doesn't make any sense. If the problem over here is, like we said in Ois Kat and Aleph, if the problem is Tircha Yisera or Uvda D'Chayil, what do I care if you started on Thursday, you started on Friday? The bottom line is, if you're doing it on Shabbos, it's Tircha Yisera and it's Uvda D'Chayil. So what do I care when you started? No, but that's not an Isser of Tircha. That's not a concept of Tircha. Over here, you're telling me the Isser over here is an Isser of Tircha, it's an Isser of the D'Chayil. But if you started on Friday, well, guess what? Friday is Chayil. You could do Tircha Yisera on Friday, you could do of the D'Chayil on Friday. Yeah.
The beginning is more difficult.
Kol HaScholos Kashas.
What?
Kol HaScholos Kashas.
Yeah, it's more difficult. You start, you have to position yourself, you have to pick out a few, and then things become like easier. And number two, it's like what's his name? Eruv Tavshir.
That's what he said, yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's what he was saying. What Shimon was
So
saying.
what does it mean? Yeah, but I don't know if he explained that in here. So what does it mean? It means that once he did the beginning, okay, so that shows that, he's already used to it. He already knows what to do, and it just continues to flow.
So it could be that the second thing you're saying is a little bit how the Aruch HaShulchan answers this. But before we get to that, I just want to, let's tie up the loose ends. What the Chavetz Chaim does, and what the Chavetz Chaim says in the Shar Tzion is, he says, the Magen Avram's diuk looks like a very good diuk. The Mechaber says also lahaschil, so the Isser is an Isser to start. If you didn't start on Shabbos, then you're allowed to continue. However, the Taz's kasha is an Eisen kasha. The Taz's question is a very, very, very good question. L'chayra, the reason for the Isser doesn't seem to support that logic. Also, the Taz brings a bevy of rayas that he's right. So says the Chavetz Chaim parses over here. The Chavetz Chaim says, I'm going to go like the Magen Avram, I'm going to go with the Magen Avram's diuk, that there is a chilik between if you started on Shabbos, if you started before Shabbos. More is mutter if you started before Shabbos than if you started on Shabbos. But when I look in the Taz and I see the Taz's rayas, all of the Taz's rayas only apply for when you're taking more than 5 boxes. So he says, so you know what? I'm going to paskin that if you started on Erev Shabbos, then for a Dvar Rishus you can take up to 5 boxes, but not more. That's what the Chavetz Chaim does. He makes a pshara between the Magen Avram and the Taz. The Aruch HaShulchan looked at this Magen Avram and Taz, and he said, Magen Avram is a great diak, also lahaschil, but if you're not starting, it's fine. The Taz is kasha. The Taz's kasha is, well, the Isser is tircha and is of the Dechayel. If I started before Shabbos, it's still tircha and of the Dechayel. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, Aruch HaShulchan says, what is this Isser of tircha and of the Dechayel? What is this Isser? It's not an Isser Malacha. It's not supported by a Daraisa. It's a Darabanan because of the spirit of the day. The Aruch HaShulchan buys us a big Chiddush here. He says, this whole Isser of tircha and of the Dechayel is only for a type of tircha and a type of the Dechayel that you separate yourself from on Shabbos. So, if you started cleaning out an oitzer before Shabbos, then it's not something that you're separated from. It's something that you're in middle of. If it's something that you're in middle of, you're allowed to continue it. Now, to put this in a more practical sense, I saw in Rabbi Ribiat's Sefer on the Lavates Malachas, he brings down like this. He says, how about if you're in shul and we're going to make Shalosh Shudas? And now suddenly, because we're making a Shalosh Shudas, we have to break down the room and we have to reset the room. We have to move 50 chairs and we have to move 20 tables. He said, is that Tercha Yisera? It sure is. It's a lot of work. Is it Aser Mishum Tercha on Shabbos? It's not Aser Mishum Tercha. You're allowed to move tables. Why? Because that's not a tercha that you're movdal. It's not a tercha that you're separated from. Cleaning out your garage, that's not something. That's not something that any shaykhis, any shum shaykhis to be doing on Shabbos. That's a project. That's a fremde. It's a strange project that you don't undertake on Shabbos. He says, but to move tables, to move a piece of furniture that's somewhat heavy, the Aruch HaShulchan says this is ma'aseh b'chol yom. I have a 13-foot dining room table. So a 13-foot dining room table, if you invite more guests on Shabbos and you have to rearrange the room, you're going to pick up the table, turn it the other way, put a T, make another table. It's a heavy piece of furniture. It's heavier than a kupa of shalosh sa'im. So you're going to tell me you're not allowed to move it? Of course you're allowed to move it. So this is the way the Aruch HaShulchan resolved this theory. Yeah. It's a vague...
It's not real. It's the definition of the Rabbanan.
It's like I told you, the Rabbanans. Remember I told you? The Rabbanans are difficult. The Rabbanans are difficult because they're gray areas. They're not black and white. They're not Dvarim K'tzur.
The Rabbanan is basically psychology.
What's another 4 or 5? You can have 50 bottles.
So we'll get to that.
Or you can have 12.
We'll get to it. Okay, so let's go right.
You can say a quarter or
Yeah, let's go right. Okay, so the Mishnah Berurah says in Eis Katan Gimel, Lefanoisai, to empty the Eitzer. Avo, even for a Dvar Rishus, let's say you want to cut through the room. Avo mutar lasai shvil baraglov, you can make a pathway with your feet. Lakan or lakan, you can kick a box this way, kick a box that way. Derech halichasai v'yitziasai, so that you should be able to go through the room, you should be able to get in and out. Dezeh loy hevi b'chalal pinui. That's not considered clearing out the room. In other words, it would seem that the tircha that we're worried about over here is a tircha, we don't want you to undertake a project to go ahead and clear out a room. But if you have to walk through and you want to kick stuff out of the way, that you could do. The Sfas Emes is bothered by this. The Sfas Emes says, sometimes there's more tircha involved in moving a box in a strange way with your feet than there is with your hands. And I don't hear the Sfas Emes' kasha, because I think the point over here is we don't want you undertaking a heavy-duty exertion project full of exertion to move boxes. You're not going to do that with your feet. With your feet, you're just going to clear a pathway, the pathway that you need to move around. Says the Chavetz Chaim in Ois Katan Daled, Lidvar Mitzvah. You're allowed to empty out a room, Lidvar Mitzvah, with a certain amount of limitations. Chavetz Chaim says Lidvar Mitzvah. Va'afilu be'inyan she'esh by Tayrach Yoser. Even, once you're doing it for Dvar Mitzvah, you could do, even if there's a lot of work involved. Kigayin, for example, lahagbiyam, to lift these boxes up, or l'shalshalam, and to lower them down, b'chaloynai shebakaisel, through the windows in the wall, ayla hayridam b'sulamais, or to take them down with ladders, ayla taltalam migag lagag, to move them from one rooftop to another rooftop. And clearly, what the Mishnah Berurah is doing over here, he's coming la'afuke, what the halacha is that we have in Hilchos Yom Tov, in Siman Tov Kuf Chaf Aleph, where it says that on Yom Tov, if somebody had produce up on a roof, and he sees rain is coming, so Mishum Hefsid Meruba, we have a heter that he's allowed to go take that produce and move it from one rooftop to another rooftop. However, over there, the halacha limits him. So for instance, if he has a roof that's surrounded by walls, and the walls have windows in it, the halacha is he's not allowed to pick up the produce, raise it up to the window, and then lower it out through the window. If the rooftop is not surrounded by mechitzas, he could throw the stuff off the roof. He could lower it off the roof. But once there's a lifting and moving involved, over there for Hilchos Yom Tov, even in a makom of Hefsid Meruba, we're not matir. Over here, we are matir to do this for a Dvar Mitzvah on Shabbos. Okay. Now, the Mechaber said, and let's go back up now. I want to read the Mechaber again, this piece, before we do the Mishnah Berurah, on the top of the page, on Kuf Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. So, for a Dvar Mitzvah, you're allowed to start emptying out this room. V'keitzad mefanehu, what are the regulations? Im haya ha'oitzer gadol, if it's a big storage room, mefana mimenu chamesh kupais, you could take out 5 boxes, shebechol kupa shalosh sa'im, where each box has in it 3 sa. Now, to put that into contemporary terms, I believe 3 sa, according to Reb Chaim Na, 3 sa should be 25 liters, which is approximately 20 gallons. So this is volume. So you figure a box.
25 liters?
Yeah. About, it should be about 20 gallons. Right? 25. Oh, no, you're right. Divide by, you're right, 6. So 1 second. 3.
Unless you're talking about not liquid, or you're talking about other things.
Why am I off? Right, a saw, 3 saw is 25 liters. That's what 3 saw is. And 25 liters is how much?
6 1/4.
Or 24, 25, 6 and change.
So I'm off. All right. Okay. So each box would have in here 3 saw. Okay. Now, if it's a small storage room and you only have 5 boxes, you can't take out all 5 boxes. You can take out 4. You have to leave 1 box. But you cannot empty out everything. Why? Because then you're exposing the entire surface of the floor, and you might come to be mashve gumais. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim in Ois Katan Hey, Chamish Kupais, V'lo Yoser, you can't take out more than 5 boxes, Mishum Tircha, because this is already a Tircha on a level that we're not even going to allow you to do for a Dvar Mitzvah. V'chanal B'sif Katan Aleph. I wrote down over here in my thing, Dirshu footnote 7, I don't remember what it was, these are boxes, you have 3 sa, Mishum Tircha, and he brings down from Rosh Shlomo Zalman, he wants to know what happens if you have one very big box that has 3 sa worth of material in it, so it's an exceptionally heavy box. Are you allowed to move that or not? And he's Mesupik. He doesn't have an answer. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Vav, Shema Yavai, you might come, if you expose the floor, you might be mashve gumais. Hainu Shema Yira Gumais Pekarkes Ha'itzer, you might see holes and cracks in the floor of the storage room, the Yavai Lahashvaisam, and you'll come to fill them, which would be a Telda of Bainam. Va'afilu ein sham ela shalosh shay arba kupos. Let's say you had a storage room that only has 3 or 4 boxes. Also, you're not allowed to remove everything. You have to leave at least something there, so you should not expose the whole floor. And I think the psychology of this is, why don't we say that you might be mashva gumais? You move one box, maybe there'll be a hole under that box and you'll come to be mashva gumais. I think the psychology of it is that you don't start paying attention to the floor and you don't say that you're going to do a floor refinishing project until you have an empty room. As long as there's stuff in the room, your mind is not on fixing the floor. Now we have a very important Ramah, very Yesodistic Ramah. Yeah. Oh, so the truth is that our flaws are, when it comes to the Gzera of Mashva Gumais, our flaws are a matter of dispute amongst the Paiskim. There are those Paiskim that want to aser sweeping a floor. And the reason they aser sweeping a floor is because of Mashva Gumais. They say that outside, your deck, there are Paiskim that say you're not allowed to sweep your deck. Because inside, we have a Kabbalah that inside you're allowed to sweep, as long as you have a finished floor. If you have a dirt floor, you're not allowed to. But once you have a finished floor, so an interior floor, you're allowed to sweep. But an exterior floor, you're not allowed to sweep. So how about if I have a deck made out of Trex, right? It's a nice synthetic flooring. What Isser of Mashra Gumais is there? So there's a lot of raid over here in the Paiskim when you apply Mashra Gumais and when you don't. So the Ramah says over here, Haggah, v'chol shvus. The Ramah says a Yesod now. V'chol shvus shehitiru mishum tzarech mitzvah. Whenever we're matir an Isser d'Rabbanan because of a tzarech mitzvah, and the Chafetz Chaim is going to tell us that this is a reference to a shvus to shvus b'makom mitzvah. For instance, to ask a guy to do an Isser d'Rabbanan b'makom mitzvah, right? So that's a double shvus. Doing it yourself would be an Issa D'Rabbanan, and Amir L'Akom asking a guy to do it is already a D'Rabbanan. So a shvus to shvus, we are matir b'makom mitzvah. So says the Ramah, v'chol shvus she'itiru b'shem tzarech mitzvah, whenever we are matir a shvus, a D'Rabbanan, b'makom mitzvah, mutter gam kein l'tzarech archim. Whenever we say something is mutter for a mitzvah, it's also mutter for guests. Okay? Well, now, let's go dive right down into the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah in Eis Cotton Zayin, V'chol Shvus, Ayin Siman Shin Zayin Sif Hey. That's where the Mechaber talks about a Shvus to Shvus b'makom mitzvah. So whenever we're matir a Shvus b'makom mitzvah, you could also do it l'tzarech archem, Eis Cotton Ches, Shabalabayas Hamazamnam, the Balabayas, the head of the household that invites guests, Eisa mitzvah is doing a mitzvah. Ukamay Shamru Chazal, and like Chazal say, the Gedor lahachnasas archim yaser mehakpalas b'nei Shechina. We learned that from Avram Avinu, when Avram Avinu was sitting outside his tent, and the Rebbeinu Shalom was talking to him, and then the Malachim came, and he thought that they were guests, so he asked the Shechina, please wait for me for a minute while I go get the guests. So you see that achnasas archim, or bringing guests into your house, is as great as being mekabel b'nei Shechina. So it's a huge mitzvah. So says the Mechaber, whenever we're matir a shvus, and like we said, it means a shvus to shvus, b'makom mitzvah, you could also do a shvus to shvus for guests. Yeah.
So, Achmasas Orchim is a mitzvah? That's
Yes.
the definition? And we only learn it from Avram Avinu?
No. We're learning out from Avram Avinu that it's as great as Akpalas Pnei Shechina. Where does it say that Achnasas Archim? You want to know? Well, you're asking. Are you asking me if Achnasas Archim is one of the Taryag mitzvahs? I believe it is, and I would say that it is. It's part of the mitzvah of Chesed, which we learn out from. It's Mahu Afata, which we learn out from. What's the pasuk? Where do we learn out Mahu Afata? I forgot the pasuk, but that's one of the things that we learn out from the concept of Mahu Afata. That you have to emulate the ways of the Rebbeinu Shalom.
So what is telling me?
No, he's just telling me that it's as great as like Baal Pnei Shechina.
No, the Chafetz Chaim, right? The Mishnah Berurah. He's saying.
Ukamay Shamru Chazal, the Gdei Achnasas Archim, Yosef Mak Baal Pnei Shechina.
What do you mean?
Right.
Achnasas Archim is a mitzvah. So what does he have
Oh,
to
you're asking me why does he have to say it? You're asking me why does he have to say it?
If it is a mitzvah.
No, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
V'halachta b'drachav.
Well, yeah, but I'll tell you why. I would think the answer to your question is because not everything that you do for an oirich is being mekayim the mitzvah specifically of achnasas archim. In other words, what is the kiyum of achnasas archim? You invite guests into your house, you give them a room to sleep, and you're going to give them a meal. You mekayim the mitzvah of achnasas archim. Now, let's say you have to do something to make your archim more comfortable. Is that being mekayim the mitzvah? Is your kiyum of the mitzvah of achnasas archim dependent on that? I don't know. I think what he's saying over here is anything that you're doing for your archim, you'll be mater shvus to shvus. But it doesn't necessarily have to hinge on the kiyum ha-mitzvah. You understand what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying?
Well, you're saying that the mitzvah of achnasas archim has degrees on it.
Right.
And
You-
some of the degrees don't qualify.
Right. That's not the kiyum. Right. That's not the kiyum ha-mitzvah.
They're still included under the title
Of achnasas archim that you could be over shvus to shvus for.
Right.
Okay, so now, now let's go a little bit further in the Ramah. V'loi mikri archim. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines down near the beginning of the line. V'loi mikri archim. When we talk about archim, when we talk about guests, what are we talking about? V'loi mikri archim. We don't call them guests. Ela shenis archu etzloi bebeisai. Only if you're putting them up in your house. Or your neighbor has guests that are sleeping by him, and you invite them over for a meal. But if on Shabbos afternoon you invite your neighbor to eat lunch by you, loy mikri archim, that's not called guests. Ve'enai sudas mitzvah, rak sudas rishus. That's not called a suda of a mitzvah that we're going to be matir you to do tercha on Shabbos for archim, because they don't have to eat in your house. They can eat in their house. What's called archim? Archim is pshat. You invited your niece and nephew to come over for Shabbos. So now you have archim, and they need to eat by you. So now if you have to clear out a room to make room, that's not a problem that you're allowed to do. But you want to invite your neighbor to come for lunch, let him eat lunch at his house. There's no reason that you should have to go clear out a room to invite your neighbor over for lunch. So that's, the Ramah says, that's not called archim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, aval kishezimein, ois katan tes, umikam makayim, still, imazmin chaveroi sheyavai lechvaid ha'oreach. Let's say you invited your brother for Shabbos, and you know that your neighbor is a good friend of your brother. So you invited your brother for Shabbos. He's a bona fide oirich. He's a bona fide guest. Now you ask your neighbor, my brother is here. Why don't you join us for the Suda? So now he's coming lichvoid your oirich. That's considered an oirich, and for that you could be matir tercha on Shabbos. Oz gamu nekshav ka'oreach. Now, if you have to make room for him, you could clear out stuff to make room for him. And if the Suda itself is a Suda's mitzvah, let's say it's a Suda of a bris, or it's a Suda of a siyum, then certainly you're allowed to clear away room to make room for the people that are coming for the Suda's mitzvah, even if they're not archim. A Suda's bris.
So,
A Suda's bris is a Suda's mitzvah. What do you mean?
what? Where does it say that it's a Suda mitzvah? I don't understand.
Everywhere in halach it says that a Suda's bris is a Suda's mitzvah. What do you mean?
I know the bris is a mitzvah.
Right.
So what is it?
Okay.
So what is this?
What?
You're talking about mitzvahs. Now you're saying Suda's mitzvah is also
A Suda's mitzvah. Yeah. A Suda's mitzvah is a mitzvah.
Only as a mitzvah I understood because you said. And now
Are you having a hard time why a bris Suda is a Suda's mitzvah? Are you coming to argue on that now?
if we are, I don't want stuff things be said. I want to be consistent.
We're being very consistent. A Suda's mitzvah.
The Torah or not.
A Suda's mitzvah.
Very nice.
So you're
It's
about
beautiful.
Kairek. You're about Kairek.
It's beautiful.
Mishnah Berurah the Gomos Yisuf Benoit. Also, Mishnah Berurah, you gone or just Berurah.
So it's a mitzvah? It's one of the Taryag mitzvahs?
No, it's not a Taryag mitzvah. To be a Sudas mitzvah, it doesn't have to be one of the Taryag mitzvahs. We call a Siyam a Sudas mitzvah. A Siyam is not one of the Taryag mitzvahs.
If I understand,
So in halacha, we quantify things as Sudas mitzvahs all the time.
where do you get it from? Where do you get this?
We have halachas of what an oval. We have halachas of what an oval is allowed to do. Is an oval allowed to attend a suda or not? So we have gdarim. If something is a sudas mitzvah, or it's not a sudas mitzvah. These are very fixed gdarim and halacha. These are not kedushim that were mechadish and shin lam and gimel.
Where did we get it?
Okay, I hear you. But that's the.
We have to say
We reached the end. Baruch Hashem.
what you quote over there.